Tonight, Beechworth Jail stays in local hands with a community investment group taking it over. An Uber-style ride-sharing service about to be rolled out across the border. Recognition for a man who's keeping alive an age-old form of communication.
And as we roll towards the end of a wet month, what can we expect for the weekend? Details coming up.
This is PRIME7 News at 6 with Freya Cole.
Good evening. The historic Beechworth Jail has been sold to a group of local investors after the sale to a Sydney developer fell through. The community says it's happy the tourist attraction will be kept in local hands.
Third and final call. You're finished, you're done, you're silent. At 1.75 million. I'll formally pass the property into this gentleman here.
7 months ago, the heritage-listed Beechworth Jail was sold to a Sydney investor at auction. There were fears in the community the historic building, which is most famous for housing Ned Kelly, would be turned into a housing estate. But the sale fell through and has since been bought by a group of mainly local investors who've promised to preserve its heritage values.
Well, we're wanting to, over time, build a thriving, basically an integrated plan that sees the jail become a thriving community space for Beechworth.
The group is remaining tight-lipped on exactly what they plan to do with the jail, but they say they'll consult with the community and release more details in October. The Chamber of Commerce led a petition for the state government to buy back the 160-year-old jail, worried that it would be subdivided. But members say they couldn't be happier it's in local hands.
Fantastic news that we have a local consortium. Matt Farlett, local guy, great entrepreneurial skills, and certainly has his heart in the town. So we are all feeling really grateful that that's happened.
Probably for Beechworth, it obviously means another industry, another business that's going to start up to be a hub for North East Victoria.
But with the buyer's plans kept confidential, what does the community want to see the jail become?
I mean, it's great for a museum, an extension of the museum.
We'd like to see it preserved with some of the aspects of the history and the heritage that we've got, but also it's a good opportunity to provide a bit of a progressive tourism.
Bridget Rollison, PRIME7 News.
Police are investigating a brutal assault in Lavington overnight which left a man in hospital. Reporter Alexandra Ristway has been following the story.
Freya, detectives returned to the scene at this home on Urana Road this morning to remove several pieces of evidence. Police were called to the property shortly after 4 a.m, where they say a 21-year-old man had been attacked. They found the victim with injuries to one of his hands as well as his head and face. Now, he was taken to hospital for treatment while investigations into exactly what went on continue.
OK, thanks, Alex. Alex Ristway there. The Indigo Council is looking to increase the amount ratepayers and councillors are fined for being aggressive or rude at council meetings. Mayor James Trenery says council is reviewing all of the local laws around meetings. Currently, councillors and ratepayers can be fined $750.
But it certainly puts a limit on what people can say in an aggressive manner, which is fantastic. So it should.
Wangaratta Council has similar penalties, but there are no fines in Albury for aggressive behaviour during meetings. The man behind a new border ride sharing service promises his app will make it cheaper to get home from a big night out. Mitch Knorr claims on average the cost of catching a My Country taxi will be about 20% less than a regular taxi.
The rider will request a ride through the app. Driver accepts.
This is our first look at My Country Taxi. It's border local Mitch Knorr's answer to popular ride-sharing app Uber.
You can then track your driver to when they will arrive.
All it takes is a simple tap of your smartphone to book a ride with one of 10 drivers signed up to the service. Dozens of people have been quick to download the app, and Mr Knorr expects demand will grow, especially with a promise like this.
We've looked at our competitors' rates and we've made them up to 25% cheaper.
A base fare of $6 will get you anywhere within 5 kilometres. But the Border's taxi industry does not believe it is under threat by the startup. Some believe Mr Knorr's operation may hit a speed bump.
If someone gets one of these rideshare cars in Albury and wants to go to Wodonga, as soon as they cross the river into Victoria, they'll become illegal. So that means there'll be no insurance to cover them, whether it's for the vehicle or a passenger with TAC. All of that's out the window because it is still illegal in Victoria.
Ride-sharing is legal in New South Wales but banned in Victoria, although it is tipped to be legalised by Christmas. Alexandra Ristway, PRIME7 News.
Rail advocates fear talk about a super fast train is distracting the Victorian government from fixing the North East line. It continues to be plagued with problems, and today was no exception, as V-Line passengers were forced back on buses.
One by one, passengers board what was supposed to be a train. The 7:05 Southern Cross to Albury and 12:45 Albury to Southern Cross cancelled due to a fault.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm just going to go with the crowd then. It's fine, I guess. Yeah. I'm not fast. Just put my earphones in and zone out.
I do like the train because it's very comfortable and easygoing. The coach is not always quite as comfortable.
The coach service is good, but that's not what people came to the railway station. They came to board a train.
Victoria's Transport Minister Jacinta Allen recently pledged to fix the North East train line, but Ms Allen is yet to say when, except that she knows services need to improve. The Border Rail Action Group says renewed talk about a bullet train is an unwanted distraction.
What we need, first of all, is just get the ordinary conventional trains operating.
15 million was allocated in this year's Victorian budget to revamp our ageing trains. The Border Rail Action Group's demanding to know exactly how and when the money will be spent. Josh Matthews, PRIME7 News.
Albury councillors Alice Glacken and Graham Doxey have teamed up once again for re-election in September. Councillor Glacken unveiled her ticket today, which also includes Vicky Gray, Jennifer Mamouni and Anne Mitchell. Councillor Glacken was first elected to Albury City in 2004 and has served as both mayor and deputy, while Councillor Doxey was elected in 2012 and is seeking a second term. The council election will be held on September 10. Madeleine Collignon joins us now for a look at the weather. And Maddie, as we head towards the end of a wet July, can we expect any more rain?
Freya, for our region over the next few days, there is actually a pretty good chance that we will see some more scattered showers around. But as we head through our Friday, Saturday and Sunday, if we do see any rain, it's not going to be more than a few millimetres. Temperatures across the region today, again cooler than average, thanks to that southwesterly breeze. Yarrawonga 12, Beechworth 9, Albury, Wodonga a top of just 11 degrees today. We had the odd scattered shower. We didn't see any rain recorded between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. this afternoon. We even saw a little bit of sunshine around lunchtime in Albury, but nothing to write home about. Taking a look at those dam levels now, and Hume Dam is today sitting at 63% and Dartmouth is at 53%. Stick around, I'll have your weekend weather forecast right after sport.
Thank you, Maddie. And still ahead, wet paddocks posing a disease problem for some farmers, and the man who knows all the dots and dashes of an old-fashioned form of messaging.
Stay in touch 24/7 with PRIME7 News.
Albury Council's industrial precinct is one step closer to reality, with a tender approved for a local company to build Stage 1. AP Delaney has been awarded the contract and will get started on road paving, curbing, sewer and water services. Nexus is a 450-hectare development of prime industrial land, 10 kilometres north of Albury's CBD. Mayor Hank Vanderven expects 1,000 jobs will be created when the industrial hub is complete, and the local economy is expected to be boosted by $90 million. Charlestown University has claimed the title of first and only university in Australia to be carbon neutral. CSU's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Andrew Van, describes that as a just reward for years of planning and harder work.
This university is one of only 27 organisations in Australia officially listed and certified as carbon neutral. It's an achievement the uni is proud of.
We think we're ahead of the curve on this. We think other organisations will have to catch up to this, but this is a challenge we're all going to face into the future if we're actually going to keep the planet habitable for us as a species.
The uni has worked towards the goal of becoming a green machine for several years. It's taken a lot of planning and investment, and they're hoping their efforts will inspire other organisations locally and nationally to do their bit for our planet.
It's a really important part of showing leadership in the environmental space. Greenhouse emissions are a challenge that we all need to face up to. We think it's really important that universities show leadership in this space.
CSU operates across 9 campuses in regional New South Wales and Victoria. The Vice-Chancellor says this carbon-neutral certification shows that organisations can thrive while being aware of and showing care for the places we live and learn. So what did they do? What are the nuts and bolts of how they achieved this unique status? Well, they built a gas plant to heat the buildings, have solar panels, started using electric cars. But it's actually the simple changes that made the biggest difference.
It's not just a big light switch on the wall that you click it on and all the lights in a room come on, you switch it off, they all turn off. We're now in a situation where we can adjust the brightness of lights individually, they can all be computer controlled. But if you're not actually using that space, you don't need to be lighting it, you don't need to be heating it as much, and so you can remove that sort of wasted capacity.
CSU admit they are buying offsets to reach neutrality but are committed to reducing its current emissions even further by reducing energy use and doing more with solar power. Phoebe Moore, PRIME7 News.
Farmers face losing a third of their crops to a disease caused by our wettest winter in 25 years. Agronomists are warning farmers to be vigilant about fungal outbreaks, and many soaked paddocks are already too wet to treat.
Warm, wet conditions can be great for crop growth, but too much of a good thing is threatening to ruin crops and slash farmers' profits.
Growers could be facing losses of up to 30 to 40% in crops where these diseases are established because they are difficult to control with fungicides.
Waterlogged soils are stunting plant growth, with root systems unable to cope with the wet conditions. It means weak roots like these on barley plants, and they're starting to have an effect on the cropping season. Root diseases can cause serious damage to young cereal crops, and the DPI are seeing more samples coming in due to wet weather. The best way to break the cycle of disease is by changing crops every season.
The fundamental thing that we want to encourage growers to look at is their rotation, and that can give them some level of protection against root diseases.
Leaf diseases are another major problem for growers. With a warmer winter, there could be big problems come the main spring growth period. Many paddocks are too wet to drive in, and spraying may have to be done by plane at a huge cost to farmers. But where they can, farmers should apply fungicides as soon as possible to avoid massive losses later on.
We know from our research that this is a critical phase to get fungicides applied.
Tom Major, PRIME7 News.
A Beechworth man has been honoured for his services to reinvigorate the town's historic Telegraph Museum. Leo Nettie has been working hard for the past 20 years to keep the rare art of Morse code alive.
The Beechworth Telegraph Station is the busiest in the world.
Our visitors to the historic.
It first opened in 1858, but closed when Morse code was no longer relevant. In 2001, council took over the building, and a year later, Leo Nettie came along and opened the museum as an operating station run by volunteers.
We're one of the very few that are left that open every day, that see people every day and have telegraph messages lodged every day.
Morse code was Mr Nettie's first trade. He worked for Australia Post as a telegraphist for 30 years. These days, the Morse code magician sends around 60 telegrams a week for people who visit the museum. Mr Nettie says Morse code messaging is even faster than texting.
And if you care to check out the Guinness Book of Records, you'll find that the Morse codian fraternity beat one of the world champion texters by quite a fair degree.
Mr Nettie was shortlisted for an award by Museum Australia for his volunteer services. While he didn't win, he says it was great to be recognised.
To go down to Melbourne and see my name up in lights on a big screen, I thought it was really great.
Mr Nettie is writing a book about the history of the telegraph in Beechworth as he works to keep the art of Morse code alive. Bridget Rollison, PRIME7 News.
Up next in local sport, Albury star Joel Mackey out for this week's clash with Wodonga and getting ready for a 130-kilometre race between Wagga and Albury. Albury star Joel Mackey will miss this week's clash with Wodonga after he was handed a one-match suspension at last week's tribunal. The two-time Morris medalist pleaded not guilty to striking Raiders Connor Newnham. Albury made the case that the contact was insufficient to warrant a suspension, which was supported by the evidence given by Newnham, who said that Mackey barely hit him. The tribunal disagreed, taking the view that the punch was thrown intentionally, handing Mackey a 2-week ban with 1 week suspended. One of the Border's longest running and most meaningful cycling events will enjoy an anniversary this weekend. The John Woodman Memorial, which begins in Wagga and finishes in Albury, will celebrate its 30th birthday.
A 135-kilometre cycling race in the middle of winter. It doesn't sound like an event that would appeal to many, certainly not when you look at last year's conditions, but the John Woodman Memorial has resonated with local riders. It was revived in 1986 and named after Woodman a year later, and this weekend the event will celebrate its 30th anniversary.
Lavington Sports Club Cycling Club at the time decided to start running the event again, and John actually raced in the 86 event and was killed late in 86 while out training, so it was named in his honour.
The race begins in Wagga before finishing roughly 3 hours later in Albury, and while riders from across the country will come to compete, locally it's all about the Albury-Wagga rivalry.
It's always a good rivalry between Wagga and Albury. We race with the riders out of Wagga a lot, so we all know each other, so it's good fun there. They're a good bunch of crew.
It's one of the strongest fields the event has seen, especially in the women's. The current leader of the National Road Series, Kate Perry, will be taking on local hopefuls Madeline Wright and Taryn Heathers, while in the men's, locals Jesse Featonby and Brad Rose are both a chance. The race starts in Wagga Sunday morning at 10. Fletcher Doherty, PRIME7 News.
The title race in local soccer has been blown wide open, with front-runners Cobram being drawn back to the pack. They take on Melrose this weekend in a game that could turn the title race on its head.
Hand the league title to Cobram is what Wangaratta star Adam Birchall said recently. The title race looked all but over, but after a shock loss to Murderford, the Raw are now in danger of being run down. Not that seems to worry Cobram's Steve Sagani, who wasn't too interested in talking about their recent loss.
Just a bad day, mate. I'll leave it at that.
Cobram are top in both the men's and the women's, and they take on Melrose this weekend. Melrose aren't in the hunt for the league title and have joined a handful of other clubs in turning their attention to the finals.
We sort of gave up on the league probably 2 weeks ago. So defensively we've been going really well, not conceding, but at the other end of the spectrum we haven't been scoring. So for the next 4 or 5 weeks we'll be looking at sort of changing a few things tactically.
In women's soccer, and St Pat's are out to prove how far they've come this year. When they played United earlier in the season, they lost 7-0. But according to Amber Thomas, they're a different team this time around.
We've matched the top teams recently, and it's just great for our self-esteem to see that we are a serious competitor in this competition.
Meanwhile, Murray United will travel to Melbourne to take on Kingston after a week off. Their last game was cancelled due to rain. Fletcher Doherty, PRIME7 News.
Mick Raines has stepped down from the Albury Steamers coaching role after the reigning premiers failed to make the finals. And today, the premiership coach set the record straight, making it clear that it was solely his decision to leave the club, putting to bed any rumours that he had been pushed out by the Steamers committee.
A little bit scrappy.
I advised them earlier this week, so they've been pretty supportive actually. It's not quite as rocky as it sounds between me and the committee. It's all a bit of smoke and mirrors.
The Steamers were unable to replicate their dream season last year, where they finished on top and proceeded to win the premierships. This year they finished second to last. Well, another chilly day across the region. We'll find out the latest on what to expect on the weekend in just a moment.
Hello once again, Madeleine Collingyoung with you. Yet again today it was a little cooler than average for this time of year thanks to that fresh southwesterly breeze that's been blowing into Victoria. Now as we head through the next couple of days there is a chance that we will see more scattered showers. We're expecting to see more snow falling out towards Falls Creek and Mount Hotham as well. And then as we move into Monday we've got another system that's going to push through from the southwest, and with that system we are expecting to see decent rain to start the working week. Here's the forecast now for tomorrow. 12 degrees the top for Albury-Wodonga, 14 in Yarrawonga, 13 degrees in Shepparton. There is about an 80% chance that we will see rain tomorrow, but if we see any at all, it's not going to be more than 1 or 2 millimetres. Getting a little bit warmer, finally, for the weekend. 14 degrees for Albury-Wodonga. That's actually a little bit warmer than average for this time of year. 13 in Beechworth and 12 in Corryong. On Sunday, warming up even more. 15 degrees for the border, 14 in Beechworth, and more snow falling at Mount Buller, which is good to see, a top of 3 degrees out that way. Sunrise tomorrow morning is at 12 minutes past 7, and now onto the forecast as we head into August. And on Monday, we are expecting to see some decent falls around the place, up to 10, 15 millimetres in some centres. On Tuesday, once again, much the same story, but temperatures cooling down. And then by Wednesday, a top of just 11 degrees on the border, and another grey and overcast day is expected.
Thank you, Maddie. That's all we have time for in the local news tonight. But you can join the debate on tonight's stories on Facebook. If you search YouTube for PRIME7 News Border, you can see tonight's bulletin in full. Thanks for watching. Coming up is 7 News from Melbourne.